The Bengals head into the NFL draft this 2020 season, expected widely to take Joe Burrow in the first round, but with the benefits of picking this early in the draft, you also get what many would say is a potential late first round pick and your second round pick in a draft this year as well when you go from a player potential standpoint here. So the big question here for the Bengals is this season, who do they go after in the second round? So today we're going to go over the position I think the Bengals should target the most here. Yesterday was a big day for these Bengals. We seen Cincy sign DJ Reader and Trey Waynes, and then they also added on Xavier Su'a-Filo, who's going to be a guard that is most expected to replace John Miller here, who did not play last season as a starter, but did grade better from a Pro Football Focus standpoint than John Miller did, so we'll consider that an upgrade. And it's interesting to bring these three positions up because if we would have talked about my top draft needs for the Bengals going into the draft all of 2 days ago, I would have probably told you interior defensive lineman, linebacker, offensive lineman. And I'll still never go against taking a defensive lineman. I understand where the Bengals are at now. They're in a great position. You say the four they got on the field now are very good from an edge and interior standpoint, but at the same time, it is more than beneficial to be able to go out there and say one thing, what if, something happens, two of them are getting older now in Atkins and Dunlap, where you can say, you know what, draft for the future and a couple years down the road, these guys are going to continue to slowly decline. And even more so importantly, you look at it, I find the defensive line so important because they can go in and the more solid stud players you have on that D-line that you can substitute in during the game, the more time that's going to give other guys to sit on the sidelines, catch their breath, and stay well rested for that third quarter, for that fourth quarter, when you start to see those dominant pass rushers really make their presence known and close out games. And more importantly, if you start to see that Bengals defensive line get back into pressuring the quarterback constantly, you're going to see the lives of the CBs get a heck of a lot better for this Bengals team. And I think you'll see a little bit of an improvement there. That's part of the reason I'm not huge on jumping on the CB train, especially in the second round here. But still, at the end of the day, when you look and you see Reader right now, you do have to think that the Bengals look at that as a win, as something they don't have to worry about as much in the draft. Now, obviously they can still get on that route if they want, but I think they look at it as something more of a back burner option. Would love to have it, but not completely necessary with the second round pick. And then I'm looking at the offensive line, Xavier, a guy I'd expect, as we mentioned before, to be considered the replacement for John Miller and an upgrade at the position. You're not gonna, you're just not gonna go from where the Bengals, the offensive line's been, and just go to the Dallas Cowboys offensive line in a matter of 1 year, right? And the Bengals, they realize that they're trying to slowly move that needle to continue improving, and Xavier is a guy that can do that for this team. And then you talk about Jonah Williams, who I think is the next big question. How much faith do the Bengals have in Jonah Williams being the answer to this offensive line from an improvement standpoint? How much better can they be with him on the field this season? He was hurt last season. What will they do this year if they get some chemistry? These guys start playing together. We've seen some promise out of some of these guys. As we got farther in the season, guys started playing better. They still have a little ways to go. The question though, will it be enough to say, can we pass up on a first round, again, caliber, we'll say in the second round, first round caliber offensive lineman this season? And I'm going to say, again, it's tough, but I'm going to say yes. Am I going to take this offensive line off the draft board? Absolutely not. Do I think there's another position they can go after? Sure, but when you look at the free agency signings, and that, again, is a big reason why. Williams is going to be an upgrade. Su'a-Filo, whose name I am probably still not saying properly, will get it though, is obviously looked at as an upgrade as well. You consider that's two offensive line upgrades the Bengals are looking at. They're saying, okay, we got two. Let's see if we can focus on another weakness of this team, which there clearly is. You don't get the first overall pick without having weaknesses in multiple areas, and the Bengals are doing their best right now to, fill all those holes, and I think they're doing a pretty solid job of it right now. You gotta hats off to them for being active in free agency here. These signings are telling me the Bengals are thinking about trying to be the competitive this season. If not this season, they're looking, a season or two down the road, or they can start being a competitive team once again. But the position I'm really eyeing right now is linebacker more than anything, for a couple reasons. First of all, you look at Vontaze Burfict. There's one thing we learned from Burfict, other than what the league suspension protocol was, is a great linebacker, a guy that can fly around the field and make the big plays, is a huge difference for a defense when he is and isn't on the field. And right now, it's looking like there's a projected 3 linebackers to be taken off the board by the time the Bengals come around with their second pick here, which, top 4, potentially a top 3 linebacker in the draft, depending how things fall here, can be a huge improvement for this defense and a position I feel like they've been lacking a little bit of here these past couple seasons. So I think if you're the Bengals, if you have a guy or two on your radar that are really sticking out from a linebacker position, go after him. Jump on him as quick as you can. But at the same time, if there isn't that guy that sticks out, there isn't that, big player like that guy can make the difference on our team, you gotta continue to play the best available game here. Because, currently, talking about projections in the first round, we're talking about 4 offensive linemen currently being projected off the board by the time the Bengals take their second round pick. And again, you're talking about a potential top 5 offensive lineman in the draft. I'm a little bit, I guess, still thinking of the past when it comes to the Bengals offensive line and cornerback picks over the past couple years. So I guess I'm a little jittery from that standpoint. Or maybe I'd like to see them try to target another area here in the draft and see if they can do a little bit better from that standpoint. A lot of it's been injuries, though. Regardless, the Bengals are going to get a chance. Someone, somewhere is going to slide to the Bengals in the second round that is a top 3 or 4 player in their position, whether that's offensive lineman, whether that's defensive lineman, whether that's linebacker. That'd be the 3 areas I'd be looking at as the Bengals, on areas I don't think you could afford to pass up if they're laying around in the draft. I know the wide receiver class is deep this year. Maybe that's an option, but when I think of that, I would like to see what Joe Burrow can do with Tate, with Boyd, with John Ross if he can stay healthy for a season. I think these guys, they're weapons that I'd love to see what Joe Burrow can do with. And personally, I just like to see them give him one more chance to see what these guys can do before you jump the gun on picking up what would be a 4th wide receiver for this bunch here. I don't mind the tight end selection, though. The tight end, as of right now, it doesn't look like there is one projected to be in the first round. There's different drafts galore. Some teams, some probably have them, some don't. But you talk about a position that can make a difference. You look at what Kelsey did for the Chiefs over the past how many years, even before Patrick Mahomes came around, or you look at what Greg Olsen did with little around him for quite a few years there, or Gronkowski, completely different story, stud, but Tom Brady in hand over there. But you've seen it time and time again where these kiddo, if you want to throw in there, these tight ends play with not a lot of weapons around them, and they're big difference makers. They can be just as big of a difference maker as getting a stud wide receiver in the draft, and if that presents itself, hey, that's an option. But it's just, I can't stress how important I think this year's draft is for the Bengals. Just don't get fancy. You can't afford to play this guy slid because he had this problem or this problem. Let's try to turn his career around, or let's hope he gets healthy game. I don't think you can afford to continue doing stuff like that in the draft. You got to go for what's best out there that fits your needs. And again, you look linebacker and you look in the trenches, I think, if you're the Bengals this season.